I went to Vegas and I spoke to Jim about issues that you may encounter with fiber optic cables as well as Ethernet cables. If it says that a cable is Cat 8, is it actually Cat 8? If a cable says that it's Cat 6, 6A or whatever, is it actually that type of cable? If you touch fiber optic cables, does that change the performance of a fiber optic cable and cause problems with fiber optic cables? We spoke about multiple things. Use the timestamps below if you want to jump to certain parts of the video. I'm going to be creating a series of videos talking about cables, issues that you may encounter with cables, etc. Please let me know the types of topics that you want me to cover.
Jim, I've heard it's a really bad idea to touch the tips of fiber optic cables. Is that true?
It's not a danger to your finger, no, but it doesn't improve the performance of the light going through. We've got a fun experiment. Let's take a look at what happens if we have a dirty connector. So first, we're going to take a look at our connectors. Just going to use a camera here and slide this in. You know, as we get on in life, we learn that it's important to put on our safety glasses if we're trying to get something in focus. Okay, so this is a clean connector. This is a multi-mode connector, and we can see the core. That is the larger circle. Larger circle is about the width of a human hair, and we can see the cladding. There's a speck of dirt off to the side, but this is a clean connector. Let's remember that the red boot is a clean connector, and I'm just going to put it in this fiber optic coupler here. Now, let's take a look at this other connector, and this other connector should also be clean, because we want to talk about how, beautiful, clean. So just a touch. And this is in Vegas where it's really dry. Our hands are dry, but I still have some oil on my finger. And that's not going to improve the performance. But what happens is I have my clean connector and I put my dirty connector on it. And now we're going to go back to what was our clean connector. And we're going to get what I like to call the coffee cup stain because we have transferred the dirt over.
Wow.
Now, the bad thing is I'm going to plug this into my SFP, my QSFP, and I'm going to get frame errors. So I'll go, this cable's bad. And I will take this cable out and I'll put the next cable in. And guess what?
Again.
Then it's dirty again. Okay, so there is our simple demonstration why we want to make sure the connector is clean. So we have a dirty connector.
Yeah,
how do we clean it?
Yeah, exactly.
Well, of course, you would need the specialized Fluke cleaning shirt. Let's take a look at that.
So just rub it with your shirt, right?
Actually, that did better than I expected. You are not supposed to use your shirt to clean the connector. What we recommend, the guidance of the connector manufacturers. So what we're going to do is just give this a click. We'll slide that in. Now, some people have asked me about how this click cleaner works. You can see it's got a little bit of string there. And as we push down, the string comes out and rotates. That wipes the dirt off the end. But we always want to check after we've cleaned it to make sure that we didn't accidentally touched it again. Phooey. So just cleaning it is not quite enough. We really want to clean it and then look at it one more time. Come along. Beautiful. We're ready to go. We could analyze it, but trust that that's in good shape.
That's a great demo.
This tiny market of fiber cable can cause problems. You may have errors in your network. It could even potentially take down your network.
Jim, what's the difference between single mode and multi-mode fiber?
This is a great question. Mode is from the Latin word for path.
Okay.
And single mode fiber has a single path. Multi-mode has multiple paths. Typically, single mode will be yellow. Multi-mode will be blue or Erica violet or lime, the new OM5. But don't trust the jacket and don't trust what's written on it. If we look at it with this video microscope, of course, never look into a fiber because you can't see the light coming out and it might burn your eye. The outer circle there is called the cladding. It's about the width of a human hair. And in the middle, we have the core. The core of the fiber is 50 microns. That makes it a multi-mode, multiple path fiber. So now let's take a look at this single mode connector. I'm just going to put this back in motion. Get back in motion. There we go. And again, with our video microscope, we're going to take a look at the single mode fiber. And, it's a little bit dirty. We could probably give that a clean. But what I want to draw your attention to is that tiny little hole in the middle. Now, one of the differences between single mode and multi-mode is that multi-mode is a little bit more robust. With that larger core, it can tolerate a little bit more dirt. That smaller core, it's 9 microns, is more susceptible to a speck of dirt blocking it. Now, the other thing that's counterintuitive is that smaller core allows us to send much more data, and that's based on the light source that we transmit. This might be too much, but we'll use a VCSEL on the multi-mode, and we'll use an FP laser on the single mode. And the FP laser we really haven't calculated how much data we can put through it yet. We keep adding more and more
faster. Yeah.
to the same fiber. So there's a quick difference between single mode and multi-mode. So there's another way to see the difference, and that's with a visual fault locator, a VFL.
Yeah.
I'm sure you've shown that before, because it's always cool to tie a knot in the fiber and see the light coming out. But I'm going to turn on my trusty VFL here. So when I turn on this visual fault locator, that helps me to find the end of the fiber. We'll see the spot. Can you see the spot that the single mode laser makes? Now, if we put a multi-mode cable on here, on their multi-mode cable, you'll see that the pattern is more spread out. That's just the different paths. If you don't happen to have a microscope to be able to look and see what the core size is of the fiber, here's a trick to use the VFL to determine whether it's single mode or multi-mode. So here we're looking at a multi-mode fiber, and we can see how the light is kind of spread out. Now let me switch from the multi-mode back to the single mode, and with single mode, we should see, that the light is more solid. Of course, as I bring it farther away to help you guys take a look at it there, it's going to spread out. But single mode does give us a more concentrated dot there.
A simple way to think of this is the following. Multi-mode has a bigger core, so it's more forgiving. Single mode has a tiny core and can carry data much further, but the downside is that a tiny piece of dirt can block a much larger percentage of the signal path. Now here's an important safety note. Never look directly into a fiber cable to check if there's light. Firstly, you can't see the light. Some wavelengths are invisible, and that makes them more dangerous because your eye doesn't naturally react to them. Use proper tools, not your eyes, to look at a cable.
Jim, is it dangerous to look into a fiber optic cable to see if there's light coming through it?
Absolutely. Please don't. A couple of reasons not to. Now, I'm holding both ends of this and I can see it. So don't do this. Don't look into it. You have two eyes and you don't want to damage your one good eye.
Yep.
The light that we're transmitting, you don't know what type of laser. Irregardless of the type of laser that you're using, we can't see that color. We can't see that wavelength.
So it wouldn't help anyway.
It wouldn't help anyways. Now, if it happens to be a high-powered laser on the far end, you'll have a dot that will follow you around wherever you look. Hopefully that will pass, but please don't stare into fiber. Just kind of basic safety. One other thing that's nice, if you are going to be working with fiber optics, wash your hands. They get dirty really easy, and if you've just had potato chips for lunch, that's not going to improve the performance of your fiber.
Jim, how do you find the distance to where there's a break in a fiber cable or something like that?
That's a common question because I want to find out if there's continuity in my fiber or not.
Yeah.
So what we're going to use today is an optical time domain reflectometer.
Okay.
And the optical time domain OTDR sends a pulse of light out, and it measures how long it takes for the light to come back. If something is close, it will come back sooner. If something is farther away, it'll take more time. Now, I'm just going to use this cable that's attached. Being well prepared, I didn't set this test up ahead of time, so you're going to have to watch me push this button and say new test. And I'm just going to say auto OTDR. Just do whatever needs to be done. And we'll say use selected and push test to start. Now, the first thing we're going to look at is the quality of the port here. We want to make sure that the port on the OTDR is clean. That's our window to the outside world. And you can see that we've got a big reflection there about 100 meters, a little bit more than 100 meters away, about 105 meters. That would be 345 feet for your North American audience.
Yeah.
About here. Now, to make the test more interesting, I'm going to plug it into this box. This box happens to have a piece of fiber in it, and we can take a look down the fiber. Because one thing is to know the distance to where the big yellow fiber finder found the cable. These big yellow fiber finders are hydraulically assisted. They've got a claw on them like this. It says Caterpillar on the side.
That's right. Exactly right.
Sorry.
That's what always happens, right? Yep.
Yes, please call before you dig. So I'm just going to plug this cable into my demonstration box. I'm going to push test on the button. Now again, we'll check and make sure that the port is clean. We're shooting the light pulse. We see that it's a little bit longer now, and there are a couple of different events that are happening in the fiber. And oh no,
there you go. Yeah.
We have failed. Now, this is the expert view, and this is what anyone's going to look like. You don't have to understand how the OTDR works, but I know you like to show people how things work.
Yep.
So we're going to jump over here, and we're going to take a look at the trace on the OTDR, and we're going to zoom in to this spot. Now we're looking at two wavelengths. That's 850 and 1300 because we're doing multi-mode. And I'm going to ask it to just give me one of the wavelengths. So what we're going to do is measure the distance of before that event and after that event. I'll put a mark here. I'll slide this over. And now it's telling us that we've got about 0.9 dB of loss. On the vertical scale, we're measuring in decibels. It doesn't matter what a decibel is. It's a relationship between what was sent and what was come back and what came back. So in the olden days, we had to look at each one of the events to see what was happening. Of course, it's easier today to just look at the thing that's telling us. We can also see the first connector. Now the first connector is green because the loss is acceptable.
Yeah.
But there's a quick, the nickel story of how we use an OTDR to find the end of the fiber.
So that's fantastic. So is the break around, what is it like around here?
Well, that's not a break. That is, in my demo box, you can see
so
here.
It's picking it up.
It says there's a bad splice. Now, we were out on the show floor and we were doing a demonstration, and one of the people came by and they said, well, if the box tells you that there's a bad splice 50 meters away, what do you need the tester for? So you see here about 50 meters down, we have a defect put in there. It's a fusion splice. We shouldn't be able to see a fusion splice because a good fusion splice, we're not going to see it. Anyways, I was showing it to one of the people while we were here, and they said, well, if the box tells you that there's a problem that far away, what do you need the tester for? And the worst thing about it was they were right. But the break in the fiber is up here at the top. There's the distance to where the fiber stopped.
Oh, so like 683 feet.
Yes. About 200 meters.
That's great. Okay, so we saw a break because it was the end of the cable. You put it into that box. There's a break about, 150 meters or whatever it is. Yeah, and that gives us the full length.
Yeah, there's a defect. So
the
network isn't working. You call and you say, why isn't the network not working? And the technician comes, and if it's not something simple like dirt on the cable, hopefully it's dirt, we can clean it off. If not, use our OTDR to find the distance to the events and the distance to the end of the cable.
That's great.
Now, most people watching this video probably have copper Ethernet at home. They've probably seen RJ45 connectors like this. This is the kind of stuff that a lot of us see every day, not fiber running between switches. So the obvious question is, does copper behave in the same way as a fiber cable? Can an RJ45 connector become dirty like a fiber cable? And do you really need Cat8 for gaming or home networking?
Jim Vincent behind the camera had a really good question. He's not into networking like we are. And his question was, what's the difference between, say, that yellow cable and the blue cable that you got in your hands? What is this Ethernet? Is that Ethernet? What's the difference between the two of them?
That's a great question. You have a great assistant here.
I do.
So they both do Ethernet. Ethernet is the encoding, the modulation of how we send the signal.
Yeah.
Now, the media, this is a fiber optic, a glass cable, and this is a copper cable. It has 4 pairs, so Ethernet can run on both. Now, in your house, this fiber optic cable probably comes into a box at the outside of your house. Inside your house, you probably have copper cable. So they both support Ethernet. One is glass, one is copper.
Yes, I'm glad you mentioned that. So the fiber cable is glass on the inside, whereas the Ethernet we typically have at home is copper, right?
Exactly, yeah. There are 4 twisted pairs in here, terminated with an RJ45 plug.
He was also telling us a story, and this is definitely not me, this is Vincent behind the cameras, how he was messing around with cables, and he wanted to know, based on some of the other videos we've made, can you make a Ethernet copper cable dirty like a fiber cable? Do you have to clean it before you plug it in, or can you make a copper cable dirty like a fiber cable?
Copper cables are much more robust. They handle dirt. And this is actually a question we get because we make test equipment and people are plugging and unplugging it all the time. And it turns out, if you plug it in once, it has a gold coating and it will stay connected forever. But if you unplug it, it actually does better to plug it, unplug it with some frequency, because if there is a contamination, you'll wipe it off. But no, it shouldn't need to be inspected.
Jim, I've got a piece of cable here. I'm not quite sure what it is. Is it Cat 5? Is it category 7, 8? How could I test actually what it is?
Okay, that's a great question. Let's take a look at how we do a certification, a TIA 568 certification of a cable.
Yep.
Now, when I read the jacket says category 6. Maybe it is category 6, hopefully. So we're just going to push test here and run a test. Actually, I think this test is set up for category 5E. We'll take it easy on the cable. And what we're measuring is the signal and the noise. And we measure the signal and the noise, and it tells us if this is acceptable. And because it's saying pass here, it has enough signal coming out, and it reduces the noise. There are two noise parameters. One is interference between pairs, and the other one is echoes that come back. And those are at acceptable levels. So yes, this cable could be category 5E.
Okay.
But I wonder,
only at 5E at the moment. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's interesting that it passed category 5E. Great. Now, what if it said category 8 on the jacket?
Yeah. Can you prove it? Yeah.
Can we prove if it's category 8? Let's try running a category 8 test.
Brilliant.
Okay. So now we're set up to run a category 8 test, and we'll push test to start. Now, this test is going to take a little bit longer because our category 5E test measured to a frequency of 100 megahertz.
Yep.
Category 6 is 250, 6A is 500, and category 8 is 2 gigahertz. So that's a lot of space. Takes it a little bit longer to run the test. And that's,
there you go.
yeah, that's not a good noise. So no, even if it said category 8 on the jacket, electrically under the jacket where the signal travels, where it matters, this one doesn't quite meet those requirements.
Jim, you just done a test on this cable, right? And we tested it at 5E. And it passed, but I see it's failing at category 8. Is that a problem, though, if I'm at home and I just do gaming or email, watch Netflix, etc.? Generally, do I need to have Cat 8 cable, or is like Cat 6 okay for me?
Does the person you're playing against have category 8? They would have that little advantage over you.
That is a very good point.
Yep, that'll keep you up. No, it's not going to matter at all. Category 6A will support any copper application that you're running today and tomorrow. In the future, something will go faster. Somehow we'll do it. How we're going to do it, I don't know. But category 8, because of the shielding requirements, in my mind, is a little bit overkill for my residential applications, residential installation.
How fast or how quick, what's the bandwidth of a Cat 6A cable that you recommend?
A category 6A cable is going to give us 500 megahertz to work with. Now, today we have 10 gigabits, but tomorrow, artificial intelligence is going to help us figure out how to go faster within those 500 megahertz. And this is an important thing. If we think about the standard as defining, for example, a road, here's how wide the lanes are.
Yeah.
Here's what the lowest overpass is. That helps them design what size a different truck could be. Maybe I'll make a taller truck. Maybe I'll make 2 trucks. Well, the standards define the lowest overpass for the category 6A cables. So then people like Cisco know how to design the truck, the vehicle that will go on it. And I know they're thinking about making a faster vehicle or something else that they could put on the cable, some type of power perhaps.
But today, max speed 10 gigabits per second.
This commercially available network interface cards aren't going to be faster than 10 gigabits, no.
So the practical takeaway is this. With fiber, don't guess. Inspect it, clean it properly, inspect it again, and never look directly into the cable. If the fault is deeper in the cable, use an OTDR to find the distance to the problem. And for home Ethernet, don't buy Cat 8 just because the number is bigger. Don't believe the marketing hype that 8 is better than 7, is better than 6A, etc. You probably don't need that. 6A for most of us is good enough. The problem with 7 and the problem with 8 is we don't have Ethernet connectors to connect a Cat 8 cable to give us 40 gig Ethernet. So it's kind of pointless buying category 8 cables today. For most of us, Cat 6A or Cat 6 is good enough and is more than what we need. If you really want high speed Ethernet, so let's say you want 25 gig or you want 100 gig, then you're going to need to look at buying fiber cables. We, once again, don't have connectors that can run at 40 gig or 100 gig on copper Ethernet cabling. You need fiber for that. So have a look at buying fiber if you need really high speed internet, high speed networking at home.